The photograph meant everything. A father and son, frozen in time, representing decades of wrestling legacy, blood, sweat, and the American dream itself. And Drew McIntyre held it in his hands on Friday Night SmackDown and set it ablaze while the world watched in absolute horror. The flames consumed not just paper and ink, but something sacred, something that crossed every line in professional wrestling. And now, after days of deafening silence, Brandi Rhodes has finally spoken, and what she revealed will shake you to your core. You need to hear every single word of what's about to unfold because this isn't just wrestling drama anymore. This is personal. This is family. This is about a man who went too far, a wife and mother defending her husband's honor, and a moment that will define the next chapter of WWE for years to come. If you care about the Rhodes family, if you understand what that photograph represented, you need to smash the like button right now, drop a comment telling us how you felt when you saw Drew burn that photo, and make sure you're subscribed to Ring Rumble because we're about to expose every brutal detail of what happened behind the scenes and why Brandi's response changes absolutely everything. Let's take you back to that moment on SmackDown because even if you watched it live, you probably couldn't believe what you were seeing. Drew McIntyre stood in that ring with the kind of cold calculation that sends shivers down your spine. He wasn't just cutting a promo. He wasn't just building heat for a match. He was systematically dismantling everything Cody Rhodes holds dear, and he knew exactly what he was doing. When Drew pulled out that photograph, the one showing Cody and the legendary Dusty Rhodes together, that intimate family moment that represented the entire foundation of Cody's journey back to WWE, the entire wrestling world held its breath. We all knew Drew was going to say something cutting. We expected him to use it as a psychological weapon. But nobody, and I mean absolutely nobody, expected him to produce a lighter, ignite that flame, and watch as the image of Dusty Rhodes, the American Dream himself, curled and blackened and turned to ash right there in the middle of the ring. The camera caught every excruciating second. You could see Cody's face in the audience, the color draining, the rage building, the absolute devastation of watching his father's memory literally burned in front of millions of people. This wasn't wrestling. This was warfare. The arena erupted in boos so loud they shook the building. Social media exploded within seconds. Wrestling fans, casual viewers, even people who hadn't watched WWE in years were sharing the clip, expressing their shock, their disgust, their genuine anger at what Drew had done. Hashtags trend worldwide. Wrestling legends from multiple generations condemned the act. Stone Cold Steve Austin called it one of the most disrespectful things he'd ever witnessed in wrestling. Mick Foley wrote a lengthy post about the sanctity of family and wrestling storylines and how certain lines should never be crossed. Even talent from AEW, people who compete directly against WWE, spoke out about how uncomfortable they were with what transpired. Because here's what made this different from every other heel tactic in wrestling history. Dusty Rhodes isn't just Cody's father. He's an icon. He's the man who gave voice to the working class, who made millions of fans believe that someone like them could achieve greatness. He revolutionized wrestling promos, created legendary matches, and left a legacy that transcends any one company or era. And he's gone. Dusty passed away in 2015, and the Rhodes family, particularly Cody, has carried that grief while simultaneously trying to honor his memory through everything they do in wrestling. That photograph wasn't a prop. It was a precious family heirloom, a tangible connection to a father Cody can never embrace again, a grandfather that Cody's daughter will only know through stories and images like that one. Drew McIntyre knew all of this. He understood the weight of what he was holding, and he burned it anyway because in his twisted mind, this was the only way to get into Cody's head completely, to break him down psychologically before their inevitable confrontation. Drew has been on a warpath for months, claiming that Cody took his spot, that Cody received the opportunities Drew deserved, that the entire WWE universe turned their backs on him while celebrating Cody's return and championship victories. Drew transformed from the Scottish Warrior fans cheered into something darker, something more dangerous, something willing to destroy sacred memories to prove a point. The WWE universe waited with bated breath for Cody's response. Would he attack Drew immediately? Would he cut a promo the following week? Would WWE address this on social media or pretend it didn't happen? But amidst all this speculation, one voice remained notably absent. Brandi Rhodes, Cody's wife, the mother of his child, and someone who knew Dusty Rhodes personally, had said absolutely nothing publicly since the incident. No tweets. No Instagram posts. No statements through representatives. Complete radio silence that only amplified the tension and made everyone wonder what was going through her mind as she watched her husband's father's memory desecrated on live television. And then, finally, she spoke. In an exclusive interview that dropped just hours ago, Brandi Rhodes broke her silence, and what she revealed is absolutely staggering. She didn't hold back. She didn't play the diplomatic corporate game. She spoke as a wife, as a daughter-in-law who loved Dusty, as a mother worried about what kind of precedent this sets in the wrestling industry, and as someone who has intimate knowledge of what that photograph meant to her family. Brandi confirmed what many suspected, that the photograph Drew burned was indeed a personal family photo, one of the few physical copies remaining from that particular moment in time. She explained that Cody kept it in his belongings for inspiration, looking at it before major matches to remember why he fights, why he returned to WWE, and what finishing his story truly means. According to Brandi, Cody was devastated when he realized the photo was missing from his things, and even more shattered when he understood how Drew obtained it and what he planned to do with it. The violation went beyond just burning an image. Someone had to access Cody's personal belongings, steal this irreplaceable item, and hand it over to Drew for this orchestrated destruction. But here's where Brandi's interview takes an even more intense turn. She didn't just express sadness or anger. She issued what can only be described as a warning, not just to Drew McIntyre, but to anyone in WWE who thinks that targeting families and desecrating the memory of deceased legends is acceptable storytelling. Brandi made it crystal clear that while Cody is a professional who understands the business and can separate character from reality, there are lines that once crossed, cannot be uncrossed. She stated that Drew McIntyre made this personal in a way that transcends championships, matches, or storylines, and that when you attack someone's family, especially a parent they've lost, you're no longer playing a character. You're revealing who you truly are as a human being. The wrestling community is absolutely divided right now, and you need to let us know where you stand in the comments below. One faction argues that this is just wrestling, that heels are supposed to generate genuine heat, and that if you're uncomfortable, then Drew is doing his job perfectly. They point to historical moments where wrestlers used personal tragedies for storylines, claiming this is no different. They say that everything in wrestling is ultimately a work, and that being offended by it means you're getting worked. But the other faction, and this appears to be the majority based on social media sentiment, believes that Drew and WWE crossed a line that shouldn't exist in modern wrestling. They argue that using deceased family members, especially with real photographs being destroyed, goes beyond entertainment into exploitation. They point out that Cody never gave permission for his personal property to be used this way, and that regardless of storyline, burning an image of someone's dead father on television is simply wrong from a human decency standpoint. Many are calling for WWE to issue an apology or for there to be legitimate consequences for Drew's actions within the storyline. Brandi's statement adds fuel to this debate because she positioned this as more than just wrestling fans being upset. She framed it as a family that has been genuinely wounded by actions taken in the name of entertainment. She revealed that Cody's daughter, Liberty, who is still very young, will one day be old enough to watch that footage and see her grandfather's image being burned by one of her father's rivals. Brandi asked a haunting question in her interview: what do you tell a child when they discover that someone destroyed an image of their grandfather, a man they never got to meet, just to hurt their father? How do you explain that as just business or just a storyline when the emotional impact is entirely real? The interview also touched on Dusty's legacy and what he would have thought about this moment. Brandi shared stories about Dusty that aren't widely known, about his kindness behind the scenes, his mentorship of young talent regardless of company affiliation, and his belief that wrestling should build people up rather than tear them down in genuinely harmful ways. She suggested that Dusty, despite being one of the greatest promo artists and storytellers in wrestling history, would have been disappointed by this tactic, not because it generated heat, but because it weaponized grief and loss in a way that serves no constructive purpose for the industry or the audience. Make sure you're subscribed to Ring Rumble because we're going to be following this story as it develops, and trust me, this is far from over. Hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single update because what happens next could define WWE programming for the rest of the year and potentially change how wrestling handles personal and family storylines going forward. What makes Brandi's response even more significant is the timing. WWE is in a crucial period right now, with major premium live events on the horizon and storylines building toward WrestleMania season. Cody Rhodes is positioned as one of the top faces of the company, having finally won the championship that eluded him and his father for decades. Drew McIntyre, despite his villainous turn, remains one of the most talented and valuable performers on the roster. This feud between them was already intensely personal before the photo-burning incident, with Drew claiming that Cody is an entitled golden boy who received opportunities Drew earned but never received. The real question now is where WWE takes this story. Can they possibly justify what Drew did within the context of wrestling storytelling? Will there be an actual apology or acknowledgement that a line was crossed, or will they double down and have Drew continue to weaponize Cody's family and legacy? And perhaps most importantly, how does Cody Rhodes himself respond to this violation now that his wife has publicly expressed the family's genuine hurt and anger? Wrestling fans have seen countless feuds over the years. We've watched wrestlers insult each other's families, bring up personal issues, and push boundaries for dramatic effect. But something about this moment feels fundamentally different. Maybe it's because we live in an era where fans are more aware of the real people behind the characters. Maybe it's because the wrestling community has become more conscious about mental health and emotional well-being. Or maybe it's simply because watching an image of a beloved, deceased wrestling legend burn on live television crossed a threshold that even the most storyline-hardened fans weren't prepared for. Brandi's decision to speak out also raises questions about the role of wrestlers' families in modern WWE. Should spouses, children, and other family members be considered fair game for storylines? Where is the boundary between compelling television and genuine exploitation? These aren't easy questions, and the wrestling industry has struggled with them for decades. But moments like this force the conversation into the open and demand that companies, performers, and fans collectively decide what kind of product they want wrestling to be. Drop a comment right now and tell us honestly, did Drew McIntyre go too far, or is this exactly the kind of heel work that makes wrestling memorable? Do you think WWE should address this differently, or are they handling it perfectly by letting the controversy build? And what should Cody's response be when he finally confronts Drew face to face after everything that's happened? As Brandi's interview continues to circulate and more wrestling personalities weigh in on the situation, one thing becomes increasingly clear. This storyline has transcended typical wrestling drama and touched something raw in the collective consciousness of the wrestling world. Whether that's good for business or harmful to the industry depends entirely on how WWE navigates the aftermath and whether they can turn this genuine controversy into a satisfying resolution that respects everyone involved while still delivering the entertainment fans expect. The Rhodes family has given everything to professional wrestling across multiple generations. Dusty Rhodes literally changed the industry. Cody Rhodes walked away from guaranteed money and success to bet on himself and ultimately achieved his family's dream. And now, with Brandi speaking out about the pain of watching Dusty's memory weaponized for entertainment, we're witnessing a moment that will be discussed and debated for years to come. Make sure you're part of that conversation by subscribing to Ring Rumble, hitting that like button, and dropping your thoughts in the comments below, because this story is far from finished, and what comes next will be absolutely unmissable.